Sveicināti Delfi TV skatītāji! Ēterā ir raidījums Kāpēc. Un šodien jūsu uzmanībai intervijas ieraksts ar Ukrainas ģenerālprokuroru Andriju Kostinu. Viņš strādā pie tā, lai pie atbildības sauktu visus, kas Ukrainā šobrīd pastrādā kara noziegumus, no ierindniekiem līdz pat Krievijas federācijas vadībai. Un Rīgā viņš bija ieradies, lai starptautiskajā konferencē runātu par vienu no lielākiem šiem kara noziegumiem - tūkstošu Ukrainas bērnu nozagšanu, nolaupīšanu, deportāciju uz Krievijas teritoriju. Pēc sarunas ar Kostinu mēs turpināsim sarunu šajā Delfi TV studijā ar Latvijas Universitātes lektoru un starptautisko tiesību ekspertu Mari Lejnieku. So, Mr. Kostin, thank you for finding time to meet us today. And I would like to begin with the issue that brought you to Riga this week, the international effort to return home almost 20,000 Ukrainian children that were abducted by Russia from the occupied territories and brought to the territory of Russia, separated from their families, subjected to indoctrination and deprivation of Ukrainian identity. There is an opinion that even on a world scale, what Russia is doing to Ukrainian children is unprecedented. Do you agree with that opinion?
Yes, this is unprecedented. Since Second World War, Europe has not seen such policy of kidnapping, of stealing of children from one nation, forcibly transferring them to the territory of another country, stripping them from their nationality, citizenship, changing their names, adoption. And the world haven't seen that this is not even hidden by those who planned, orchestrated and executed this policy. So President Putin, high-level state officials of Russia, Russian parliament who simplified the rules or regulations on adoption, they are all one big criminal group of people who, once again, first time since Second World War, although Europe saw a lot of other war crimes committed during wars and conflicts in 20th century, for instance, on territory of former Yugoslavia. We saw many different war crimes committed there, brutal, even on the level of genocide, which was documented and which was adopted as the result of investigation by tribunal, the case of Srebrenica. But never after Second World War, one country even tried to steal tens of thousands of children from another nation.
In your opinion, does this act amount to genocide?
First of all, forced transfer of children from one group to another is one of the elements of genocide. This is prescribed in the Genocide Convention, and we all know this. And they know this, because Russia is also the part of Genocide Convention. This is also important. So, this is one of the elements of genocide. When we look at the situation and think, why? What is the reason? Because we cannot, we cannot let alone any war crime which was committed. And when we, for instance, interrogate those who appear in our possession, Russian war criminals, or alleged war criminals, some of them still. And when we ask, why did you kill civilians during the occupation? There was no any threat. So what was the reason? This is just normal question. And some of them say, okay, we didn't want them to resist. We want to break their will, to break their resistance, and break resistance of the others, killing civilians. No one can pardon this. And this is not the reason for commission of war crimes. But when we start to see the case of massive deportation of children, we start to find out what is the reason of it. And the only answer is that this is a part of Russian policy to erase Ukraine as a nation, to erase Ukrainians from the land and from the map, and stealing the future of Ukrainian people is just part of this policy. Whereas in order to get enough evidences for the case of genocide, we need to work very intensively. Not only we, but also our partners who have the possibility, legal possibility, to bring this case before the International Criminal Court. Because the International Criminal Court has jurisdiction into war crimes, crimes against humanity, which are more severe, and the severest crime, genocide. So, in order to get to this point, we need to work hard. In my office is a special group of prosecutors who concentrate their work on the case of genocide. We have structural investigation as well as to the crime of aggression, where we also need to ensure accountability of those who initiated and started this war of aggression. And once again, what is similar to the case of crime of aggression and case of deportation of Ukrainian children? Similar is that no one after Second World War even tried to make someone accountable for the crime of aggression. The last people who were convicted for the crime of aggression, at that time it was named crime against peace, were people convicted by Nuremberg trials, Nuremberg tribunal, as people say. And we see that if in our case the international community will be strong enough to establish an element of international justice which does not exist in our situation, to establish it and to prosecute and punish those who started this war of aggression, then we will reach several goals. First of all, it's delivering justice to all Ukrainians who suffered from this war. All because crime of aggression as leadership crime opens the way for commission of all other war crimes. At the moment we have registered 120,000 incidents of war crimes. And this is not the exact full figure, because we have no access to the occupied territories, because some of the victims and survivors still did not report. But if aggression was not committed, there would be no 120 incidents of war crimes. There would be no tens of thousands killed civilians, more than 500 killed children. That's why those who start aggressive wars open the way for all other war crimes to be committed. And we need internationally, and we need to be united in order to establish special tribunal to find international mechanism to punish those who started aggressive war. So this is one goal. Second goal, it's important. The rules of international humanitarian law, which says what is possible to do without criminal responsibility when you wage the war, and which is not allowed. These rules practically does not protect servicemen, because army is fighting against army and people could be killed. But let's not forget that the rules of international humanitarian law were established at the beginning and middle of the 20th century, based on the experience on previous wars, where, for instance, two countries could fight for the territory of third. In our situation, Ukraine lived peacefully. Russia invaded us. And those servicemen who are now Ukrainian servicemen killed in course of this war yesterday were civilians. And to punish those who started crime of aggression is the only matter of justice that they can receive.
Is the highest goal of all of these proceedings is to see Vladimir Putin on the trial, to have him convicted and to have him, behind bars? Is this what you see as the most important task of all these processes?
I think this is not only the most important task of all law enforcement system. I think it's the most important for Ukrainians to feel that justice exists. But he is not alone. He is the leader, and to punish him means to give a signal to those who think that they just execute the orders, that not only their commander, but all of their chain will be held accountable. Of course, Putin is already a suspect in the International Criminal Court, and arrest warrant is issued to find him and to bring to The Hague. The International Criminal Court can hear this case only in presence of the defendant, let's say like this. So the conviction in international or verdict of the International Criminal Court in case where Putin is one of the charged or accused people could be only if Putin will appear in person. We don't know when and how it will happen, and I'm often asked, do you believe in it? While I will answer you, this is not my work to try to find out what will happen in the future. My job is to document, investigate and prosecute cases, collect evidence and prepare this case. God knows what will happen. The experience which very famous lawyers are sharing with our colleagues now, when these lawyers started as very young lawyers in tribunals of former Yugoslavia and others in the beginning of 90s. They shared this experience. They told us, when we started to collect evidences, we never believed that these people who we tried to find will ever appear in The Hague. But then many of them appeared, by different reasons. So it's not our job to pretend or to dream about it. Our job is to prepare the case. While, in order for accountability to be full, tribunal to prosecute the crime of aggression could be established and could have trial in absentia. And this will potentially make Putin accountable for the crime of aggression, and this will be a very good signal or very strong signal to any other potential aggressor in the other parts of the world. Because the world is very vulnerable today. And people who are ready to start aggressive wars in the other parts of the world are looking very attentively not only on how Ukraine and our friends and allies are fighting on the battlefield, They are looking very attentively on how Ukraine and our friends and allies are fighting for justice. Because there could be no peace without justice. Even peace without justice means just, how to say, a short period of time between next aggression or next war.
So we went to the international dimension, but also locally, you have trials for war crimes now, and you have convicted war criminals, Russian soldiers that are in Ukrainian prisons. First of all, can you give us some numbers? To what extent have you gone through this process? And then I'll ask the next thing about that.
Yeah, the first verdict appeared in Ukraine. It was the summer of 2022. The first verdict against Russian war criminal, which means that our law enforcement and our system started to work very first day of full-scale invasion to document, to fix, and to investigate and to prosecute. And while we have some of the alleged war criminals in our possession, of course, we try to bring these cases to trial to make them public in order for people to see. At the moment, we are approaching second year of full-scale invasion, and we have identified 482 suspects, which means that we identified not only exact people who committed specific crime, but we have set of evidences enough to issue them like notice of suspicion as it's prescribed by Ukrainian law. 22 of them were prisoners of war, others are cases in absentia. We have indicted 336 people from them, which means that investigation is finished and cases are brought to courts. And we have already 79, I told today 78 verdicts because figures are changing. So 79 verdicts, including 15 of them were Russian prisoners of war, others in absentia.
Is there something you learn from their defense? You have already mentioned one thing, but do you learn how these war crimes were organized?
When all the world saw what happened in Bucha, and Bucha was 1 month after full-scale invasion, and Bucha once, it's more about symbol, because the other towns in Kiev region, they suffered the same type of crimes. Well, Bucha was the most, visible, and without any understanding why they are killing people, just for nothing, just because they wanted to kill them. They played in, of course, in brackets, with people's lives, on eyes of their relatives. So they can kill the husband on the eyes of his wife, just because these people were not ready to fall on their knees and to beg something. We know these cases when we speak with these survivors who tell these stories, and we understand that this was true because they say, okay, we just talked, we said, go away, we don't need you. We don't need to be liberated. We live very peacefully. We live happily here. Go away. And then they talk, and when they understood that it's nothing about Ukrainian people who are ready to surrender and once again fall on their knees, they just started to kill. We have a boy. I will tell about him because he already spoke publicly. And it's very courageous for our survivors to go public. It's very important because when they tell their stories, it's on their own. He was it was in Bucha. He was coming with his father to receive some humanitarian aid. They received some information. Just coming on the streets, and they have white, robes, or to show that they're civilians. And Russian militaries stopped them, asked where they go, they explained, and they just killed the father on the eyes of his 15 years old boy. He fall down and they shoot at him, and his hand was wounded, and we don't know actually, maybe they tried to kill him because his hoodie was, has a hole of the bullet, and he survived. And now when we were in Davos and we presented point 7 of President Zelensky peace formula, we asked him to record video when he told this story. He is now more strong, and it's very important. We work with survivors. Actually, we started with survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. One of the most brutal crimes, because this crime is aimed to fully destroy the dignity of person. So the person stay alive, but it's about to kill, not physically, but to kill the soul. And when we have survivors who are ready to go public because we changed approach, we not only created a special unit, we not only trained people, and I'm grateful for everyone who helped us. It was very great support. We included the elements of United Nations soft law. Soft law is not the law which is oblige someone. It's just the recommendations in our documents to avoid re-traumatization, to respect the rights, we created the system. And many of the other survivors start to report. It's very difficult to report. It's even more difficult to go public. And these people are very courageous because they're telling, look, go and report. We did it and we are ready. There is a matter of trust. You will be supported and assisted. And not only legally, but also we can replace people, relocate them, help them with psychological, medical, and some other types of aid with help of several NGOs and civil society organizations and some governmental institutions. But what we have in Davos, second video, was recorded by a young woman who was raped in face of her husband. And she told that she was not only ready to tell her story publicly, knowing that a lot of people are looking at it. She also joined one of the NGOs who helped the survivors of CRSV. And she is now helping the others. And this type of communication and collaboration is very important, because everything what we are doing at the end of the day is for victims and survivors of this war.
And as I understand the testimonies of children that were rescued from Russia, there is a little bit less than 500.
388.
Yes, a little bit less than 400. They help prove the intent to destroy Ukrainians as a nation, this intent to commit genocide. That is also an important part of your work, gathering that evidence.
What is really very important? We have a lot of joint or common values with the team of Karim Khan, the prosecutor of the Office of Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. And he always say that children has their right for their voice to receive justice. It's not like literal quote, but it's very important. And not only telling this, the ICC during these years just recently introduced new regulations how to work with children. And it's not only based on Ukrainian experience, it's partially based on Ukrainian experience, and it could be used in many other situations because children suffer from different types of crimes in different parts of the world. So it is very important, so children will speak personally on their behalf, if they are ready and can. And this is part of our work to prepare them and to create them the opportunities to speak openly, to feel secured. Because, some of the witnesses, they are afraid for different reasons. And it's very important to create this feeling of security for witnesses who are ready to make statements, because their statements are the most important evidences. And collecting these evidences in a system and to show that this system exists will give us an opportunity to go ahead, not only to prosecute for war crimes committed against our children, to go up to the crimes against humanity. We fully believe that what Russia committed with deportation and abduction of Ukrainian children is already crime against humanity, and we will go up to this level. We are strong in our commitment and our evidentiary base. This is important. And then go up to genocide. When I talked to Bucha, I just wanted to mention that we saw what they committed in Bucha. But the other regions which were liberated in first months of the war, Chernigiv region, Sumy region, same types of crimes were committed there. When we liberated Kharkiv in September, and all world saw the mass graves of Izium and many other parts of Kharkiv, where crimes were committed on massive scale, the biggest number actually of torture chambers which are identified by us were in Kharkiv region. Torture chambers, different, in premises, under the ground, where people were tortured. And we saw the same types of crimes committed by the other military units, committed in another period of time. And when we saw Kherson liberated, part of our Kherson region liberated in November, we saw the same types of crimes committed by the other military units. So, which means that this is a well-planned and prepared policy, and even after all the world condemned publicly what happened in Bucha and other towns near Kiev, Russians proceed to commit the same types of crimes against Ukraine and Ukrainians, trying to break the will. But they will never do it. They will never succeed in their efforts, because Ukrainians will not stay on their knees.
What do you see the world doing now in terms of the fight for justice? How can we help? How can the world help more to what is being done now? What is lacking?
I think if we use existing legal mechanisms, all of them are working much more efficiently maybe than in previous situations somewhere, because of unprecedented level of cooperation of Ukraine with all existing instruments. International Criminal Court, United Nations Independent Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine, and some other instruments. We are delivering information, delivering data, and these instruments are working efficiently. I would like to commend the commitment and work of people who are working there for the sake of justice. The countries who open their own investigations and collecting evidences mostly from Ukrainian refugees who are safely located in these countries, I think that there is an additional resource to expedite this work. But what we will see this year, definitely, more charges to Russians by other jurisdictions. And this is very important, that Russians will see not only Ukraine, not only International Criminal Court, but other jurisdictions which have legal instruments to do it. If you have legal instruments, we have not enough resources in Ukraine in war. It's obvious. Every country has its own problems, but any European country has more resources in law enforcement than Ukraine has. You can take some cases and you can do it. We will help. We have evidences, we have people who are trained, we have, witnesses. We can do it. We are ready to transfer cases, and some of these cases are already in process of transfer, so you will see these results. I think where the world should be more brave, it's in case of establishment of special tribunal for the crime of aggression. This is important that this tribunal will be established to cover all leaders of Russia, including Putin and the other top officials. This is important because it was him who started this war. And it's important to show the others who pretend now to open new wars and conflicts in the other parts of the world that the world, the civilization of democracy and freedom can be united in order to punish those who will try to pretend. Because the existing instrument is resolution of Security Council. This is where UN thought, the founders of UN think that it will be enough. But it's not enough, it doesn't work. And we can't leave unpunished crimes because Security Council of UN is not efficient in this situation. And the other, where they, I think, should be brave, is it's for the case of reparation of damage caused by Russia to Ukrainians, especially to those whose relatives were killed, to those who were wounded, who were raped or humiliated, who lost their property, who were illegally detained, and who were suffered from any war crimes, to receive compensation or reparation from Russian assets. In this respect, the West, some countries, or some European countries and the others, can take decision to confiscate Russian sovereign assets, taking into account all legal implications, but to take brave political decision.
And the last question, coming down to very individual level, we in Latvia discuss a lot how we can best help Ukraine. There is political level, international level, and then there is volunteering, donation to charities, and personal level. If you were to tell an ordinary Latvian person without much influence or resources, how can they individually help the Ukrainian cause, to help the victory of Ukraine, what would you tell them?
I think the most important is not to forget, to be vocal. Every one of us has our community. It could be community of your friends here in Latvia. It could be community far beyond. And if you want really to help us with such a strong position of Latvian government to help Ukraine in all of our endeavors, politically, militarily, and in all of our justice endeavors, I think the most important is to tell the stories. If you give protection to tens of thousands of Ukrainians, some of them spent some time in Latvia, lived in some families, and establish some links. Ask them and tell their stories, and do it every day. Because even if we only concentrate on the children who are forcibly deported to Russia, I think that making this collective voice more loud should consist not only of voices of politicians, because they have a lot of other things to do, although I inspire them, I even propose them, okay, you have like 70 countries who help us. Can you just take every day, distribute between you, and the leader of each country will, first day of month, this respected prime minister will speak and will speak about bringing back Ukrainian children. The second day, the other president, etc. Every day to speak and not to forget. And not to forget about it. Because, and to understand, whatever you will see in the world, whatever conflict you will see, please don't forget that it started with Russia's aggression into Ukraine. Because even war crimes committed now in the other hot places in the world, they are of the same type, they are of the same nature, and when civilians and children are used to trade, to blackmail, saying we can return but we need to receive something in advance, do we really want to live in such world? No. And this is very important that people from Latvia speak to people who are living far from Latvia, because you feel what could happen and how Russians can behave. But maybe people who are living too far from our land, they don't feel. Speak to them. Share your concerns, share your feelings. This is important because people believe feelings of the others. If you feel concern, if you feel danger, share with those who are with you, the members of the same European family or the members of the same civilization whose values are freedom and democracy.
Un, lai turpinātu sarunu par to, kādas tiesiskas sekas sagaida Krieviju pēc nežēlīgā kara pret Ukrainu, mums studija ir pievienojies Latvijas Universitātes starptautisko un Eiropas tiesību zinātņu katedras lektors Māris Līnieks. Labdien!
Labdien!
Sāksim ar tiešām Ukrainas bērnu jautājumu. Un, vai jūs piekritat te paustiem šajā tikko intervijā, ko mēs noklausījāmies, paustiem, ka šī bērnu nolaupīšanā var saskatīt genocīda pazīmes un ka var mēģināt pierādīt tieši šo ļoti sarežģīto, ļoti nopietno noziegumu?
Tad varbūt sāksim ar to, ka atgādināsim jūsu skatītājiem, klausītājiem, kas ir genocīds. Tad saskaņā ar 1948. gada ANO konvenciju par genocīdu novēršanu un sodīšanu par to, kā arī saskaņā ar Romas starptautiskās krimināltiesas statūtu 6. pantu, genocīds ir darbības, kas tiek veiktas ar nolūku pilnīgi vai daļēji iznīcināt kādu etnisku, rasu, reliģisku vai nacionālo grupu. Tad, lai mēs pierādītu, ka notiek genocīds, mums pirms ir jākonstatē aizsargājumā grupa, viena no šīm 4 konkrēti. Acīm redzot, šeit nebūtu runa par reliģisku rasu grupu, bet drīzāk par nacionālu grupu, ukraiņiem. Un otrkārt, mums ir jāpierāda, ka ir bijis nolūks viņus pilnībā vai daļēji iznīcināt. Ir jākonstatē fakts, ka tiešām ir notikusi vēršanās pret nacionālo grupu un aprakstot, kā var izpausties genocīds, abas konvencijas, gan krimināltiesas statūta, gan genocīda konvencija, paredz arī bērnu izņemšanu no savas nacionālās vides, kas šobrīd, acīm redzot, ir noticis, kā viena no genocīda izpausmes veidiem. Kas būtu grūtāk, manuprāt, šajā gadījumā, būtu konstatēt, ka tika izņemti tikai un vienīgi ukraiņu bērni. Jo tikko parādīsies, ka tikpat lielā mērā no kardarbības zonas tika izvesti ne tikai ukraiņu bērni, bet pārsvarā tur taču dzīvoja, acīm redzot, krievulodīgie bērni, kuri ģimenes runā krieviski. Tad jautājums, kas ir aizsargājumā grupā? Vai Ukrainas iedzīvotāji kā tādi varētu būt aizsargājumā grupā, vai tie ir tikai tieši ukraiņi? Tas ir viens jautājums. Bet mēs gribam atgādināt, ka ir absolūti leģitīmi, ka no kardarbības zonas tiek izvesti civili iedzīvotājiem pirmkārtām bērnu aizsargāt viņus no kara. Cits jautājums, ja viņi tiek izvesti prom uz citu valsti, atdoti adopcijai, un faktiski viņiem tiek izdot jauni personas dokumenti, pieņemsim Krievijas pilsonību. Ja? Tas viens, tātad konstatēt, ka tie ir tieši ukraiņi, kur cieš, un nevis vispār iedzīvotāji, vai teiksim nevis tiem, kuriem ir ģimenes valoda krievu valoda. Tas ir viens, un otrs, protams, ir diezgan pagrūti, vai varbūt tas ir visgrūtākais, konstatēt tieši nolūku pilnībā vai daļēji iznīcināt ukraiņu tautu. Tur ir, acīm redzot, visticamāk, mēs nekad neizlasīsim Krievijas prezidenta Putina rīkojumu daļēji iznīcināt ukraiņu tautu vai pilnībā iznīcināt ukraiņu tautu, pārvēršot viņus visus par krieviem, viņi tā vai tā ir krievi. Ja? Kaut kur tā doma jau pavīd. Bet tā skaitā, jā, arī viņš bija viens no tiem, kas bija iesaistīts un argumentēja par šo bērnu it kā glābšanu, tā skaitā pārvēršanu uz Krieviju. Tātad divas lietas – tautība un otrs nolūks. Ja to izdosies pierādīt, tad mēs varam runāt par genocīdu. Pagaidām tas, ka notiek bērnu izvešana vai notikusi bērnu izvešana, varētu liecināt par genocīdu, varētu mums domāt par genocīdu. Bet pirmkārt, tas noteikti ir kara noziegums. Jo, protams, okupētāju varai ir aizliegts deportēt vietējos iedzīvotājus prom uz savu teritoriju. Tātad kara noziegums tas ir. Vismaz mēs varam domāt, ka tas ir kara noziegums, vismaz starptautiskā krimināltiesa jau ir izdevusi arestu orderu Putinam un viņa bērnu tiesību ombudsmanei.
Šajā gadījumā tas, ko mēs zinām arī no to vecāku liecībām, ka viņi ir domājuši, ka viņi sūta tos bērnus uz nometni uz laiku, atpūsties, un tad nav saņēmuši atpakaļ šos bērnus. Vai filtrācijas nometnēs arī šis ir noticis, šī šķiršanā bērnu un vecāku. Tā nozagšana ir dokumentēta, vismaz šīs liecības ir.
Jā, bet tas liecina pirmkārt, ka tas ir kara noziegums. Bez šaubām.
Bet šo bērnu liecību...
Iespējams, masveida ziņā tas varētu būt noziegums pret cilvēks, kā Kostinkungs jau kā teica. Ja?
Bet šīs bērnu liecības, jo tie bērni, tie 388 bērni, kas ir atgriezušies, viņi stāsta, ka tā identitātes atņemšana viņiem tur bija notikusi, ka viņiem tika stāstīts, ka Ukraina nepastāv, ka viņi nav ukraiņi, ka ukrainas valodu ir jāaizmirst tiem, kas vēl nemāk lasīt, mācīja lasīt un rakstīt krieviski, nevis ukrainiski un tā tālāk. Šādas liecības var tikt uzskatītas par pietiekamam, lai to genocīdu noziegumu pierādītu.
Vai tas ir pietiekami vai ne, par to lems tiesa. Bez šaubām tā ir viena no liecībām, kas varētu palīdzēt. Vai tas varētu būt noteicošais, lai pierādītu nodomu? Kā vienīgais noteikti nē. Jo galā tas var būt kaut kāda vietējā izpildītāja ekscess, kāds, pieņemsim, Krievijas pedagogs, kura rīcībā ir šie bērni, varbūt tās gribēdams to pašu labāko kā savas valsts patriotus, saklausījies, ko Putins stāsta par Ukrainas un Krievijas vēsturi, var izlemt, ka viņa pienākums tagad darīt to un to, nevis, ka būtu kaut kāds tiešām plāns un nolūks pilnībā vai daļai iznīcināt Ukraiņu tautu. Bet iespējams. Ko es gribētu šeit vēl pieskarties, par ko negāja runa jūsu intervijā ar ģenerālprokuroru? Es gribētu paskatīties nedaudz uz šo problēmu kā uz tādas juridiskās partijas šaha dēlīti. Jo, labi, tagad būs tikai, piedošana, mana spekulācija, jo es nezinu, kas ir prātā Ukrainas vadībai. Es varu tikai minēt, bet es ņemu vērā arī apstākli, ka jau pirms 2 gadiem Ukraina iesniedza ANO starptautiskajā tiesā prasību pret Krieviju par genocīdu. Saistībā ar to, ka Putins argumentēja, ka viņš uzsāk speciālo militāru operāciju, tāpēc, ka Ukraiņi ir realizējuši genocīdu, lai pasargātu Krievu Doņetskas, Luhanskas tautas no Ukraiņu genocīda. Ja? Attiecīgi Ukraina izmantoja iespēju, kā gan Krievijai, gan Ukrainai saistoši 48. gadā ANO genocīda konvencija, kas paredz strīdu risināšanu ANO starptautiskajā tiesā, un citādi atrast kaut kādu iespēju iziet uz starptautisko tiesu agresijas sākumu, pilnā apmēra agresijas sākumā Ukrainai nebija, un Ukraina faktiski iesniedz šo prasību starptautiskajā tiesā, lūdzot atzīt, ka Krievija ir pārkāpusi pati genocīda konvenciju, aizbildinoties ar genocīdu, lai attaisnotu savu kardarbību Ukrainā. Ir diezgan slidens jautājums šis, jo nav jau runa par to, ka pati vai tajā brīdī, ka kaut kur būtu noticis reāli genocīds Ukrainā. Ir runa par to, ka varbūt Putins ir nepareizi interpretējis. Un tad jautājums, vai starptautiskās tiesas jurisdikcijā būtu skatīt jautājumu nevis par to, ka ir noticis genocīds, bet kāds politiķis ir varbūt nepareizi interpretējis genocīdu jēdzienu. Tas ir, protams, starptautiskā tiesa jau pirms 2 gadiem 16. martā pieņēma pagaidu nolēmumu, ka Krievijai ir jāaptur kardarbība, jāizved karaspēks no Ukrainas. Protams, Krievija to ignorēja, bet tālāk, kā tas aizies, es baidos, ka tur ir bijis šīs slidens jautājums. Otrs aspekts, atceramies, ka tika starptautiskā krimināltiesa izdeva Putina arestu orderi tieši par kara noziegumu veikšanu. Iespējams, ka tas, ko tagad dara Ukraina un mēģina celt un aktīvi celt un musināt, atvainojos par terminu, šo jautājumu par bērnu izvēršanu kā genocīdu, jo pagaidām starptautiskā krimināltiesa tiešām pieķerusies tikai bērnu jautājumiem. Varbūt Ukraina ir ieinteresēta tiešām savākt pēc iespējas vairāk materiālu, kas varētu liecināt par hipotētisku genocīdu, lai starptautiskā krimināltiesa pārkvalificētu kara noziegumus par genocīdu un faktiski nomainīt Putinam arestu orderi no kara noziegumiem uz genocīdu, kas varbūt ir viens. Bet otrs, ja starptautiskā krimināltiesa to darītu, un kaut kad bišķīt vēlāk ANO starptautiskā tiesa pieķertos skatīt pēc būtības Ukrainas prasību pret Krieviju, ko iesniedz Ukraina pirms 2 gadiem par genocīdu konvencijas pārkāpumu, tad pat ja neizietu cauri jautājums par to, ka Putina izteiciens ļauj izskatīt šo lietu starptautiskajā tiesā, tad iespējams Ukrainas pretprasība par to kā pati Krievija realizē genocīdu jau padarītu Ukrainas pozīciju Hāgā, ANO starptautiskajā tiesā, drošāku, stabilāku strīdā ar Krieviju. Tātad tāds 3 tiesu it kā dancis var sanākt. Es, protams, nezinu, vai tā ir taisnība. Man nav nejausmas.
Uz šīs nots man ir jāatvadās no RTV skatītājiem, jo tur mūsu ētera laiks ir beidzies, bet Delfi TV studijā mēs turpināsim šo sarunu, jo ir vairāki aspekti, kurus jāizrunā. Ir tīpaši runājot par to, ka ir skaidrs, ka Vladimirs Putins, Krievijas diktators, šobrīd nav sasniedzams nevienai starptautiskai tiesai, un tad mēs runāsim par to, cik vai mēs redzēsim viņu uz apsūdzēto soli. Par to runāsim Delfi TV studijā, bet RTV skatītājiem paldies. Un, ja jūs gribat dzirdēt sarunas turpinājumu, tad lepni lūgti Delfi TV arhīvā. Un tad turpinam, tiešām es gribēju pajautāt, varbūt atkāpjoties mazliet no šī tiešām vairāku starptautisko tiesu tādas saspēles.
Ukrainas spēles pa vairākiem lauciņiem.
Un arī vairāk, starptautiskā kopiena arī palīdz, protams, šajā jautājumā. Bet mazliet vēl noslēdzot šo jautājumu par tiem gandrīz 20,000 bērnu, kas ir deportēti nelikumīgi no Ukrainas teritorijas. Vai ir iespējams šobrīd runāt vispār par jebkādu mehanizmu, kādu varētu radīt, lai šos bērnus atgrieztu, jo Ukrainas prezidenta kundze Olena Zelenska vakar izteicās, ka ja viens bērns atgrieztos dienā, tad vajadzētu 55 gadus, lai tie visi ukraiņu bērni atgrieztos mājās. Skaidrs, ka tas nav realistiski.
Diemžēl tas ir vairāk politisks jautājums. Atvainojos, starptautiskās tiesas tiesneši ar tankiem neiebrauks Maskavā un bērnus neizvedīs. Ja? Protams, mēs varam nolēmt, vai starptautiskā justīcija var nolēmt, ka tas bija kara noziegums pret cilvēks vai genocīds. Bet, kā jūs redzat, Krievija veikusi tik būtisks starptautisko tiesību pārkāpumus ar agresiju vien, ka visi pārējie spriedumi vai lēmumi absolūti Krieviju vairs neinteresē. Tātad, ja būs iespēja politiski iedarboties uz Krieviju, un kaut vai atvainojos iztirgot šos bērnus, tad iespējams jā, ja ne, tad ar spēku jau neviens to neizdarīs.
Un pieminēta ANO rezolūcija, kas par šo runātu.
ANO ģenerāla asamblēja pieņēma uzreiz rezolūciju par to, ka tas ir agresijas akts. Un kas? Starptautiskā tiesa teica, izvediet karaspēku, un kas? Diemžēl Krieviju piespiest nevar. Visticamāk. Tātad mums ir jāgaida kaut kādas drīzāk politiskās pārmaiņas pašā Krievijā.
Un jūs pats pieminējāt šo te agresijas noziegumu. Par šo šobrīd arī cīnās Ukraina, jo agresijas noziegums ir kā es saprotu, pamats, pati nelikumīga kara uzsākšana kā tāda. Un, lai tajā apsūdzētu Vladimiru Putinu, viņa ģenerāļus, dažādus ministrus un tā tālāk, lai šo iztiesātu, tur tad vajadzīgs ir šīs tribunāls. Neviena cita starptautiskā institūcija un tiesa šo aiztikt nevar. Jautājums, šis tribunāls, lai tas notiktu, mums tiešām jāsagaida kara beigas, režīma krišana Krievijā, un tad tas būs iedarbīgs, vai to var darīt jau tagad?
Tas ir jāsāk darīt bez šaubām jau tagad.
Viņi ir sākuši, procesu.
Šāds tribunāls 3 dienu laikā nevar uztaisīt. Cits jautājums, cik šāds tribunāls būs efektīvs un pirmām kārtām leģitīvs. Jo jebkura tribunāla tiesas varas pamatā vai autoritātes pamatā ir leģitīmums. Ģenerālprokurors jau pieminēja iepriekšējo pieredzi Nīmbergas tribunālu ar Dienvidslāvijas un Ruandas tribunāliem, kurus dibināja drošības padome. Nīmbergas tribunālu dibināja uzvarētāju valstis, un Vācija bija spiest pakļauties. Šeit mēs diez vai sagaidīsim situāciju, kad būs tāda pati militāra uzvara kā Otrā pasaules karā pār Vāciju. Krieviju visticamāk neviens neokupēs un Kremli. Drošības padome darboties nav spējīga Krievijas vetotiesību dēļ, tad šeit kaut kāda starptautiska tiesiska leģitimitāte atcīmredzot tribunālam nebūs. Cik daudz leģitimitātes varētu būt tam, ja sanāk, pieņemsim pat 70 valstis un pasakam, uztaisam tribunālu, tiesājam Putina. Krievijai juridiski citu 70 valstu lēmums nav saistošs. Pat tas, kas būtu saistošs, arī tad Krievija drīzāk nepildīt, bet jebkurā gadījumā nav saistošs. Ir bijusi pieredze, kad šādus tribunālus var mēģināt vai nu dibināt ar ģenerālās asamblejas atbalstu, bet atcerēsimies, ka ANO ģenerālās asamblejas rezolūcijā nav juridiski saistošs raksturs, atkal tas nav saistošs Krievijai. Var mēģināt, ja ģenerālā asambleja nenostrādā, var mēģināt izmantot kādas citas starptautiskās organizācijas autoritāti. Pieņemsim bijušo Čādas diktatoru Huseinu Habri. Arī faktiski tiesāja tāds kā kvazi starptautisks tribunāls, kuru nedibināja ne apvienoto nāciju organizācija, ne tās drošības padome, bet tāda starptautiskā organizācija kā Afrikas Savienība. Faktiski piešķirot savu autoritāti, zinām, leģitimitāti šim starptautiskajam tribunālam, un Huseins Habri par genocīdu un noziegumu pret cilvēci tika notiesāts. Kas varētu būt mūsu gadījumā? Es pieņemu, ka hipotētiski iesaistītos vēl, pieņemsim, Eiropas padome, tad varbūt būtu bišķi augstāka leģitimitāte nekā vienkārši dažām valstīm savstarpēji vienojoties.
Šobrīd šo tribunālu kopā, ja es pareizi saprotu to sistēmu, gatavo Eiropas Savienība un ASV tieslietu departaments arī ir iesaistījies. Viņi vāc tos pierādījumus tieši šim agresijas noziegumam. Bet mēs jau izrunājam, ka laikam Krievija neatzīst. Krievijai šobrīd starptautiskas tiesības neeksistē.
Jāsagaida kaut kāds brīdis, kad Krievijā kaut kas mainās. Atcerēsimies kaut vai to pašu Dienvidslāvijas tribunālu. Viņa Dienvidslāvija beigās Miloševiču izdeva. Kāpēc? Tāpēc, ka bija izdevīgāk izdot Miloševiču un dzīvot tālāk, nevis būt mūžīgā konfliktā ar vispārējo pasauli. Varbūt pienāks kaut kad šāds brīdis, kad Krievija būs ieinteresēta noregulēt attiecības vispārējo pasauli un iespējams Putinu vai izdos. Kas attiecās uz Putinu, tad, protams, viņam kā valsts vadītājiem ir imunitāte pret jebkuras nacionālās tiesas jurisdikcija, bez viņu sāk pie krimināla atbildības starptautiskā krimināla tiesa par kādu noziegumu pret cilvēku un genocīdu, ja tās būtu. Jebkura nacionālā tiesa var saukt pie atbildības, kā jau ģenerālprokurors teica, mēs jums iedosim visus pierādījumus, bet pašlūdzu tiesājot, jums ir resursi. Teiksim, kaut kādus tur ģenerāļus, kuriem nav šāda imunitāte kā valsts vadītājiem, par to pašu agresijas noziegumu varētu saukt pie atbildības arī jebkuras citas valsts tiesa.
Kā jums šķiet, šis ir no Ukrainas ģenerālprokurora bija tāds aicinājums visām valstīm, kurām ir resursi to darīt, jo es tā saprotu, tā domāšana ir, ka šis kaut kādā veidā spiedienu palielinās uz Krieviju, ka lūk, no visa pasaule parāda, ka jūs varat tikt saukts pie atbildības. Tam būtu nozīme, jēga šādai rīcībai atsevišķās valstīs šai kara noziedznieku tiesāšanai?
Es domāju, tās valstis, kas vēlās to darīt, kas vēlās palīdzēt Ukraiņiem, tās to arī darīs. Ja vien viņa teritorijā pēkšņi parādīsies kāds šis kara noziedznieks. Ja?
Var arī in absentia notiesāt, vai ne?
Hipotētiski jā. Tur ir vienīgi krimināla procesālas problēmas, kā nodrošināt to taisnīgumu, kā nodrošināt apsūdzētājiem tiesības uz aizstāvību, bet galā tajā pašā Nīderlandē, MH17 lietā, viņus visus 4 notiesāja in absentia.
Un pēdējais jautājums. Pēdējās dienās daudz tiek runāts par to, ka Krievija arvien vairāk izmanto ķimiskus ieročus, un arī mēs redzējām, ka ķimiskie uzbrukumi pieaug skaits, un tās pēdējās ziņas ir par vienu vielu granātām ar vienu aizliegto vielu, kurai Krievijai jau sen bija jābūt iznīcinātai. 17. gadā viņi ir paziņojuši, ka viņi visus šos krājumus ir likvidējuši, un jau 100 gadus eksistē protokols Ženevas par šādu vielu nepieļaušanu. Bet Krievija, acīm redzot, šo visu laiku bija ignorējusi, paturējusi un tagad izmanto. Jautājums, vai te var kaut ko darīt šajā sakarā? Vai tas ir kara noziegums? Jā. Bet tālāk mums jebkurā gadījumā iestājas viss tas, par ko mēs runājam, ka jāsagaida izmaiņas.
Tieši tā.
Tad uz šīs, laikam ne visai optimistiskās nosts, mēs varam arī noslēgt šo sarunu, ja vien jums nav kādu citu piezīmju par šo sistēmu un par to, cik tālu mēs varam, cik ātri mēs varam tiesiskumu.
Burtiski pēdējā aktualitāte, kas bija, tad aizvakar tiešām sabiedriskā tiesa pieņēma galīgo lēmumu tā Ukrainas prasībai pret Krieviju, kas tika iesniegta 2017. gadā, praktiski gandrīz pilnībā noraidot Ukrainas prasību, bet atcerēsimies to situāciju 2017. gadā, kad Ukraina meklēja visus iespējamos ceļus, lai kaut kādā veidā tiesiski atrisinātu konfliktu pēc Krimas okupācijas un aneksijas. Un meklēja kaut kādas konvencijas, kas varētu palīdzēt. Un tiešām atrada, ka starp Krieviju un Ukrainu ir saistoša terorismu novēršanas konvencija, terorismu finansēšanas novēršanas konvencija un konvencija par visu veidu rasu diskriminācijas novēršanu, kur strīdi izskatām starptautiskajā tiesā. Un atsimredzot, iesniedz šo prasību starptautiskajā tiesā, mēģinot starptautiskās sabiedrības, tā skaitā juristas sabiedrības uzmanību pievērst tam, kas notiekās. Skaidrs, ka starptautiskā tiesa beigās nonāca pie secinājuma, ka praktiski nav pārkāpta terorisma finansēšanas novēršanas konvencija, izņemot to, ka Krievija laikam nav izmeklējusi, ja Ukraina būtu lūgusi to izmeklēt. Konstatēja, ka ir noticis pārkāpums attiecībā uz rasu diskriminācijas novēršanas konvenciju, jo tiešām konstatēja, ka Krievija ir likuši šķēršļus Ukraiņu izglītībai Krimā, Ukraiņu valodā, ka tā ir krietni samazināta, bet aprobežojās tiešām tikai tādu pirkstu pakratīšanu, ne vairāk, jo jēgas to laikam arī nekāds pagaidām nav.
Laikam jācer, ka mēs piedzīvosim tos laikus, kad mēs redzēsim šīs apsūdzības, redzēsim kara noziedzniekus uz apsūdzēto sola un varēsim visi sekot līdzi arī spriedumu pasludināšanai, vai ne? Paldies par sarunu, paldies arī skatītājiem par to, ka bijāt ar mums šodien un tiekamies pēc nedēļas.